All right, welcome back, everybody. Back with another quick little news of the day video here for you guys. We are now less than 24 hours away from roster locking, which is super exciting, but it also means that things are really starting to ramp up. We have a lot of stuff to talk about today. I have 3 boards for today, so for your sake, and honestly, for mine as well, I am going to be going through things a little bit quicker in this video. Usually I like to talk about things that are going on for a couple minutes at least before moving on, but there's just so much here that I don't want this to end up being like a 30-minute long video. So again, for the sake of simplicity and for the sake of not ending up sitting here talking for 30 minutes straight, I'm going to be going through this a little bit quickly. But before we get into anything that we're talking about today, as per usual, if you've noticed that I've missed anything in this video or in prior videos that I've done regarding news, feel free to let me know in the comments down below. Try to make sure that it is something that has been confirmed. And of course, if you want to check out anything that I talk about in this video, everything has been linked in the description down below so you can check it out for yourself, as well as the link to our Discord server. And of course, if you always want to be notified, you always want to be up to date with what's going on in the Dota 2 Pro circuit, or you just always want to be notified whenever I upload, please be sure to subscribe and hit the bell down there so you're always ready whenever I do upload. As we're getting into the DPC season, I will be getting into different sorts of content, which is very exciting, so hopefully you guys are excited for that as well. And if you enjoyed today's video, please be sure to like it and share it. It goes a long way. Okay, so before we get into what's on the board here, and I'd imagine a few of you are probably already reading ahead, getting all your news fixed, I can't talk about any of that before we first talk about what is arguably the biggest news ever to hit the Dota 2 Pro circuit. And I'm being serious here. This is crazy news. It's going to affect every single region, despite the fact that it's really only rupturing in one right now, and it's going to affect the overall Dota 2 Pro scene for years to come. Never has there been anything that has impacted the overall scene and health of the overall scene ever in its existence. And that is, of course, the Arkosh roster, which has been dropped from the organization and single-handedly and personally purged and exercised by Sir Action Slacks himself. Unfortunately, they will not be continuing with Arkosh any further. They unfortunately just did not meet the requirements that Sir Action Slacks had held, which is very unfortunate to hear. So best of luck to all of those players, Pale Horse and Monkey and whoever else there was, Gremlo. Amazing players. Their list of accomplishments would go on for far too long, far longer than any video I could possibly make. So just know that this is just absolutely huge news. And rumor has it, and this is one of the only times I'll talk about rumors because honestly, Arkosh just feels like it has earned that exception. Rumor has it that they're actually possibly looking to move regions, which is kind of exciting, and that's why they dropped this roster, but nothing has been confirmed yet. And if that does happen, we'll find out in the next 24 hours before roster locking. Okay, so let's get into some more news now. Sticking around in NA, we finally know what's going to be going on with the former EG boys who, after getting dropped by Evil Geniuses who switched regions down to South America, we didn't exactly know what was going on. Fly had given us an update that a majority of the roster was going to be sticking together. It was just a matter of finding an org, and it looks like they actually didn't find an org because they have registered under their own team name, and that is Alameda 2018. That is a reference to a team house that was on that street a few years ago, obviously. So we'll see how that goes. But yes, this roster currently only has 4 members. It has Arteezy, Abed, Crit, and Fly. Notably, Nightfall is there. We'll be talking about Nightfall a little bit more later in this video, but no offlaner has been picked up by this stack either. So not only did they not get picked up by an org, but they're also missing a player, which is kind of crazy because these guys should be the kings of North America, right? Well, we'll see if that keeps up in the following season. We do have some more news regarding North America later on in the video, but for now, we're going to be moving on quickly to South America, which has 2 brand new rosters in it. The first of which coming from Alliance, who now has a South American team. And honestly, I feel like anyone who's been watching the South American Dota 2 Pro circuit for a while, or who lives there and has been digesting that content for a long time, we have known for a very long time that South American Dota was not to be taken lightly anymore. Its volatile and fun playstyle of Dota was one that was earning a lot of respect from other regions, and now I feel like we're finally starting to feel like that respect is getting paid back toward the players as more and more massive orgs in the Dota 2 Pro circuit are moving to South America. Of course, Evil Geniuses, we now have Alliance who's moving over there, and I'd imagine that there's going to be plenty more. Maybe Arkosh ends up moving, whether or not you regard them as a large org. it's still a lot of orgs moving to South America, seeing the opportunity there, because I honestly think it is there. South American Dota has been a treat to watch over the past few years, and it's been really fun watching people really start to respect the region a lot more, given their performances at stuff like LANs and at TI. So overall, really exciting to see. And yes, this new Alliance roster is going to be largely consisting and fully consisting of the former Hikori roster from last season. That, of course, being Lumiere, Analog, Vitali, Theolicore, and Gardic. So best of luck to those guys. Same team as last year once again, but now under a new name, under that larger org that hopefully is going to be able to provide them with a lot more comfortability when it comes to salary and benefits. So again, just one of those benefits of having a big org in your region. And the other big org that is now introducing their new roster is Infamous, who now has put together a roster of players with very, very similar names. First of which we have MNZ, Slatums, Oscar, Sladen, and MJZ. So yeah, that's not going to be confusing at all for anyone who's just listening to these games. But yeah, overall, this roster looks pretty good. I don't necessarily know if it would be a top team, but with South America, the region is very, very volatile. So it feels like any given season, anyone can be first place. I will say that dethroning that new Evil Geniuses roster will be difficult. I'd imagine it would be difficult. But yeah, this is a pretty good looking roster. Definitely not one that I would say looks like it's going to get immediately downgraded to Div 2. And overall, there's some good pickups here. Like again, Sladen and Oscar, fantastic. They're going to make good use of those players there. Okay. All right, let's move over to Western Europe now, where we finally have figured out the 5th member of Old G, which, if you guys haven't watched my video yesterday, I'd highly recommend you do, because I talk about a lot of things that you're going to have to know before we get into the rest of this video regarding Western Europe and Eastern Europe. And that was, of course, yesterday that Old G was a stack that was getting registered by 4 players, those being Topson, No-Tail, MSS, and No One, which is a crazy stack of players. Again, No-Tail coming out of his, I don't know if it was necessarily a retirement, but definitely an elongated break. He has not played in quite a long time, which obviously stirred up a lot of hype, and there was speculation about who that 5th player could be. Given the players on the team, we knew that they were either going to be needing an offlane player or a position 4 player, since MSS can really play either one of those, and a lot of people were speculating Seb, and a lot of people ended up being right, because yes, he ended up being the 5th member that has signed up with Old G heading into the season, which is very exciting. And ultimately, I just feel very curious about what this team is going to look like if they do manage to make it into the DPC. How seriously will they play? Because obviously when you have players like No One, MSS, and Topson, you're going to expect them to be playing at 110% every single time. But then you also have players like Seb and No-Tail on the squad who have notably critiqued the Dota 2 Pro circuit in its current form for being too prone to being burnt out and just overall being a bit of a slog. And yet they're here again. So how much effort can we expect from them? Will they actually be playing at their best? I don't think it will really require them to be playing at their utmost best to get into the Dota 2 Pro circuit in Western Europe, get into Div 2, and maybe get into Div 1. But how much further does it go from there? Do we see this stack attending majors? Not exactly sure. So let me know in the comments down below what you think of that. And yeah, I've been talking about quite a few things here quite a bit. I'm going to start to try and actually speed up a little bit here. Next up, we have Team Spirit, who of course parted ways with Toronto Tokyo suddenly yesterday after some news that they actually were having a very hard time getting along, the team and him, especially at TI, which was really unfortunate to hear. He ends up getting the boot, and Team Spirit have now replaced him with BetBoom, or formerly BetBoom's Larl. Overall, I like this move quite a bit. Larl has proven himself to be one of the better up-and-coming mid laners of the region. Didn't exactly have a great time at TI with BetBoom, but again, when you have a team that's struggling like that, it's usually not on the back of one player. It's usually kind of a team, a collective thing. So Larl, hopefully looking to get that new start. And again, playing on a team like Team Spirit is a huge break for him. So hopefully he ends up fitting in nicely, and Team Spirit can still end up being one of the top dogs in the upcoming region. But speaking of top dogs, we have a brand new roster entering the scene that looks scary as all hell. I've just got to say, like, this is an all-star studded roster, but there are a few things I am concerned about, which I'm going to be talking about. But this roster consists of Ramses playing position 1, who for a while there was speculation that he was going to be returning to Virtus Pro once again. I think it would have been like the 3rd or 4th time that he returned to VP, but ultimately VP ended up going a different direction, picking up 5 brand new players. which placed GPK and DM onto the inactive roster. And now GPK is finding himself on this new BetBoom roster as well. Same thing with Save, who have both just been released by VP over the past 24 hours. We have Nightfall coming into play at position 3 after spending a year in North America with Evil Geniuses. And Toronto Tokyo is the position 5 for this squad. Definitely not something I saw coming. Again, when I think of two roles that are the most polar opposite from each other in Dota, it has to be Pause 5 and Mid. I just feel like there's very little similarities between those two roles, so we'll see how he's able to adjust, and we'll see how this roster is going to be able to function as a team. Again, I've mentioned this time and time again, we have seen these superstar rosters form, and sometimes they work and sometimes they just don't. Sometimes the chemistry just isn't there, and that leads me to my one concern, is that how quickly do things start to devolve if this team starts to have some iffy results? If they don't qualify for the first major, do they end up kicking a player or two, even with the new point deductions that have just been increased heading into this season? It's going to be interesting to see, and overall, definitely a team to keep your eye on heading into this season. And ultimately, another team that you're going to want to keep your eye on in this season as well, because they're switching regions entirely as an organization, and that is Bait, who is making the move all the way to North America. They're doing this, obviously, off of the back with the ongoing situation between Ukraine and Russia right now, which is very unfortunate, but it is good that they're able to get somewhere that allows them to play safely, to compete safely, because ultimately, that is what matters. Being safe always comes first, obviously. But what's funny is that despite the fact that they're playing in North America, they don't have any players from that region. 4 of the 5 members on this roster are Ukrainian, and the last one is Peruvian. And this roster consists of Stonebank, Dendi, Funnick, Moose, and Lodine. Of course, Moose being the only Peruvian player on the team, the rest of them being Ukrainian. I'm very excited to see how they do. They have struggled a lot in Eastern Europe, so we'll see if maybe they're going to be able to keep their head above water a little bit easier in North America, given that traditionally the tier 2 and tier 3 scene in North America has not been as strong as somewhere like Europe. So we'll see how they end up doing. Best of luck to Bait. Ultimately, I just want to see Dendi do well, or more than anything, I just don't want to see him get utterly destroyed like he has been since he founded this organization. So yeah, we'll see how that goes. Dendi in NA, baby, one way or another. And last little bit of news on this board, because we then have our last board to talk about. Yes, that Arkosh board was one of the 3 boards I was talking about. We have Bleed Esports heading into Southeast Asia with a brand new roster, and honestly, it looks fantastic. Position 1, we got Jackie, of course, from Boom. We have Corden, Masaros, Playhard, and Dubu. Obviously, their safe lane looks fantastic with Jackie and Dubu. That is a great combination. As for the rest of them, we'll see how they're going to be able to do. Again, not necessarily a roster that right off the bat I think is going to be a top 3 in Southeast Asia, but again, the region feels really wide open right now, and it really could be anybody up there. Fnatic has made a name for themselves. SMG's new roster looks pretty good too. Mid one moving to the off lane. So we'll see how this ends up going. I like this roster quite a bit, and I'm just excited to see how they end up doing it this next season. So that now brings us into our last board of the day. And yes, I have multiple of these large boards, as longtime viewers of the channel might know. And we're going to be mainly talking about China in this last little section, which has been really ramping up as well. We had a lot of teams that just suddenly lost a lot of members over the past few days, like Vici Gaming, Invictus, PSG.LGD, as they are all here. Extreme Gaming just announced their roster heading into next season just yesterday, so if you missed that, check out my video from yesterday. But now we have the completion of 3 more of the biggest orgs in China announcing their rosters. The first of which being PSG.LGD, who of course had 3 slots to fill, with Faith Beyond heading into retirement, Jin Q parting ways with the team after his contract expired, and Ame taking an indefinite break from Pro Dota. Who have they replaced them with? Well, quite frankly, a lot of players from the former eHome stack. We have Shiro coming in to play position 1, Nothing to Say, and Y are still on the team. Y is actually potentially playing under a new name for the season, that is Why You Smile. And then for the off lane, I do not know how to pronounce his name. I could not find an English translation of his name, and in watching some replays of him, usually the casters will just be talking about his hero and not his name. So unfortunately, I don't know that, but I can say that in those clips that I watched, he looked very good. I think he'll fit right in with PSG.LGD. And finally, for the position 4 role, we have Planet, also from eHome over this past year. So Yeah, I'm really curious to see how they do because they still have this mix of a couple players from the old PSG.LGD who are going to be able to bring that experience, who are going to be able to bring that expertise to these new players who have more or less been struggling in the Div 1 scene with other stacks, and we'll see if they're going to be able to play up to the level of the previous PSG.LGD. Those are some pretty big shoes to fill, but again, PSG.LGD as an organization has been able to curate these rosters for almost a decade at this point, so I'd imagine that they would be able to do it once again. Leading into Invictus Gaming, we have a new roster for them. First of all, Emo moving to the position 1 role, which is going to be pretty exciting. He has had a pretty disappointing year, to say the least. Invictus Gaming in general has had a pretty crappy year, especially after their fantastic run at TI10. So this changeup feels like it's nice, feels pretty refreshing. I got to imagine the Emo is looking forward to this new role into the new season. We have Dust, Irving, and KYQX coming in. These guys were also previously on some other teams in the Chinese region. Paulison was on Nigma Galaxy SEA and of course Team SMG in Southeast Asia over the past little while. He is now going to be making his debut in China, which is exciting. And yeah, we'll see how Invictus Gaming is going to end up doing in this DPC season. I'd imagine that they just want to be able to do better than last year, which ultimately isn't a very high bar, but still an improvement would be much appreciated. And last roster that we're going to be looking at before we get into some non-region based or some more general news. We have Vici Gaming, who is setting up with their new roster. Erica, Setsu, Neo, FY, and Yang. I gotta say, overall, I like the Erica pickup. I think that's a fantastic carry pickup. Setsu and Neo, I don't know as much about them, but I think they'll be doing just fine, especially with the back end that you got here with FY and Yang reunited. The boys from Elephant are back together, and FY looking to get back into the swing of things fully at the start of the season. So yeah, I like this quite a bit. We'll see how Vici is going to be able to do. Again, where would you rank them? Out of the 3 Chinese teams that we just looked at, how would you rank these 3 rosters? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments down below. And last little bit of news here. We have news that PGL, as opposed to ESL, will be picking up the regional tours for both North America and Western Europe heading into this season. So in case that is a big deal for you, in case PGL is somehow your favorite tournament organizer, well, good news, you're going to be seeing a lot more of them if you watch either of these 2 regions, which is kind of unfortunate. I really liked the ESL broadcasts, but hey, what are you going to do? But anyways, thank you guys so much for watching this video. Sorry it was such a long video. There was just so much to talk about, which is always exciting. But yeah, we are less than 24 hours away from roster locking, which means that there's going to be so much going on in the next 24 hours. And then it's time to get into some more pro Dota, which is very exciting. And I am super, super stoked, and hopefully you guys are too. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please like, share. If you've made it all the way to the end of this video, let me know in the comments down below. It's much appreciated. And yeah, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll talk to you guys tomorrow when the rosters are officially locked. Bye.